That's right, friends. It's time to cinch up the 5-point and jump right into another episode of Corbetting with Chris.
Yeah, man. Super excited to be here. I enjoy doing this. This is, I'm gone full in. Got the microphone. Hopefully it's actually sounding good. Got the headset.
We had a little technical difficulty the other night, and but you went all in. Headphone, mic, background picture. Like, you have adopted the podcast book for dummies there. I've been reading all this stuff, so.
Yeah, I'm now doing an influencer thing, but if you look right here over my shoulder,
I see it.
Piece of attire here.
Oh,
that was actually given to me by my friend Jake White of Carditracks, and it says, it says Trail Digger was the name of the tire. So how appropriate. Because me and my buddies, we call our rigs, or we used to call them diggers, this actually stemmed from a kid that called, all off-road rigs for Gravedigger because of the monster truck Gravedigger. So
when you were a kid, Gravedigger was it. And so all the kids named their rigs after something that had to do with Gravedigger?
Well, it was like one of our riding buddies' kid was like, "That's Gravedigger," and it's, that's a digger. You're right, and then just everything was a Gravedigger, and, then it just kind of took life of its own, and we kind of stuck with it.
What was your rig name?
Oh, it was the Razor Digger, super. But yeah. So anyway, so Jake found this random tire and cut the sidewall out of it. It's a Trail Digger for me as a gift. It was super appropriate. But yeah, I got some little office decor going back here. Like right here is a old picture of Bobby Tanner, the rock bouncer, legend. And
awesome.
I think I got Tim Cameron. You can't see Tim Cameron up there, but the poster we did at RCV, 7-8 years ago. And
so how long have you been with RCV now?
We're probably around 10 years officially.
10 years.
Unofficially, more than that.
When did you start in with them?
They sponsored me as, I don't really know why. You
must be doing something, right?
Yeah, I had a good Facebook, man. I was, I had a really good, I was good at the internet.
You're an early adopter influencer.
Something like that, yeah. So they sponsored me. They sent me axles for my Cherokee at the time. I had like a 3/4 ton Cherokee, so it's Dana 60 rear, 44 front. And
man, another XJ guy.
Oh yeah. That's because they're the best.
Yeah, that's 2 for 2 on XJ guys there of getting their start early on. I mean, it's funny to have to create the Corbetting 6 degree of separation for XJ life. I mean.
So my first rig ever was a Grand Cherokee, and then that was too nice to really beat up. So sold that, got a truck, and then I got a XJ beater thing. It was cut in half, and I built an XO cage for it and threw it together, and just didn't care about it at all. And it was the most fun ever.
Nice. And you had a ZJ too. What year ZJ? It was inline 6 V8.
I did a 95, so it was the 5.2, I think, 5.2 V8.
Yeah, you had the 5.2 or the 5.9, like limited, the special one they had there, limited edition.
Black and gold, man. It was classy.
Nice.
It was so classy.
The lower gray two-tone with the gold on top.
Oh, yeah. It faded really good, so I spray painted it black.
Yep.
Yeah, that was great. But so they sponsored me, and then we built a relationship, and when I graduated college, I moved up to Tennessee from Alabama, originally from Birmingham, Alabama, and moved up to Tennessee and worked for a marketing firm, actually an advertising agency, if you want to be specific. And they were like, yeah, bring whatever clients in you want. It's like, okay, well, let me call up RCV, see if they need some marketing help. And worked for them there for a couple of years, and then they poached me from that company to work full time. So it's.
Now, what'd you go to school for?
I went to school for business and web analytics. So business marketing.
Where'd you go to school at? Was it
University of Alabama at Birmingham?
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it was. I went down to the Alabama for a little while and hung out. I ultimately got my degree at University of Alabama at Birmingham. Little asterisk there. But
it's in the neighborhood.
Yeah. So yeah, the marketing agency guy actually found me on the side of a hill in Arkansas once, and I was doing my thing for photography, and he was doing. He was hired by an off-road company to do some media stuff, and we built a relationship. And he basically waited till I graduated college and was like, "Hey, come work for me. Start an off-road thing." So started an off-road thing, brought in clients, RCV one of them, and now 10 years of talking about axles and CVs and CV accessories.
Now, RCV is a parent company, as I understand it. Like it's not RCV's the brand, or who is RCV Axle?
So RCV is under Aircraft Gear Corporation.
Gotcha.
And Aircraft Gear Corporation's been in business like 80 years. I don't know the exact date.
What do they do? What's their, I mean, obviously aircraft's in the name, so
being that this is the second time around, you'd think I would have researched this particular subject, but I'm not super privy as to what like we originally built, other than aircraft components. I assume that it was, spline drive pieces and, basically anything out of aircraft grade materials like 300M
gear.
And stuff like that.
So they specialize in probably more higher end materials, titanium or 300M type stuff.
So, and then that, over the years transformed, in the 80s, 70s and 80s, got real big into the aftermarket. I guess that's the liberal phrase, not aftermarket, but OEM support. So like, your AutoZone type level products, and, you need a replacement U-joint, or you need a replacement CV or boot or whatever, drive shaft piece. That was a brand that they came up with to
What was the brand name that was under?
So that was Rockford Driveline.
Rockford.
And that was a huge company. And in that time, I mean, we were in auto parts stores and shipping direct and huge dealer network. And, it was a big deal. And then that market got really competitive, and China and imports and price driven and stuff like that. So then RCV Performance was born out of necessity for customers.
Now, was the RCV, to dig up some old talk, was the RCV before or after, during Bobby Long's tenure? Because I know that for a while there, you guys, not necessarily RCV, but were private labeling, or Bobby was private labeling for a bit before, rest in peace, Bobby passed and moved on.
Yeah. So allegedly, I cannot confirm or deny.
We understand. I mean, I'll chuck a few of the hard questions on the table.
But the Toyota enthusiast came to us with an idea to make this Burfield, but make it strong. And so with that knowledge and high grade material and engineering, we were able to provide a product that would hold up. That was that same, design constraints required in that little Toyota 8-inch axle.
Yeah.
And so we made that, and that did surprisingly well. Not surprisingly well, it did great. We knew it would be great. So
yeah.
Then
great timing in the Toyota market. I mean, during that time frame, I'm a Northwest kid, so there was a lot of guys building Toyotas during that time frame, and it showed up on all the forums right at the time. I mean, Bobby had the best thing going if you were wheeling, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. No, and his knowledge really, I mean, he knew he was the product, right? We were the engineers, we were the we were able to make the hard part, but as far as like understanding where it was needed and the needs for the customer, he came to us with a problem, we provided a solution, and that actually stemmed off. He even had like a Dana 60. He was like, man, this works so well. Let's try it for Dana 60. So the first ever Dana 60 RCV was through him.
That's cool.
And, and it kind of just spiraled from there.
Yeah. I think he's been gone now a little over 10 years, maybe. I feel like it's been a while.
Dude.
I could be wrong, but I feel like it's been a while since he passed. And I know then it transferred. I remember the release, Messer ended up with it with Trail Gear. And did you guys continue that relationship, or did you guys part ways, or what was the end result of that?
So not entirely sure of the details there, but ultimately, yeah, we don't make the long field anymore.
Gotcha. Yeah, because he bought the trade name to it. So, so Matt's doing his thing. RCV goes its way. You guys kind of figure out your separation or and then away you go. And you must have came in at around that time.
So I came in, yeah, pretty much right at that time. So when I started with RCV, um, our logo was red actually when I started with RCV. So if that puts a timeline on it, our orange boot product, we had a red logo with it. But golly, I guess the biggest thing that was happening when I started was introduction to the UTV. So I hit the ground running with that because we had just started. We'd done Jeeps, Dana 60 stuff, obviously, Toyota stuff, obviously, and then the UTV stuff was blowing up in the racing world. So that's where we got super involved and hit
Was
the
it
ground
private
running.
label early on, or was it were you guys just jumping into the market in that? Because I remember, all the early Dragonfire days, and I don't know, I can't think of the brands off the top of my head, but there seemed like there were a few brands early on we're talking early Yamaha Rhino
Oh, yeah.
into like Tyrex like days. Like were you guys just private label or just coming in with that stuff?
No, we went in full swinging. We actually, our first attempt at it, we called it the Pro Series 1, or actually it was just the Pro Series at that time. And it was our spherical sealing boot. So it was the round polyblend boot that was on there. And
So your traditional orange cone boot with those early ones?
Yep.
Oh,
So
wow.
and it did okay. We actually won the Baja 1000 with Brandon Sims with that product. But over the years, we learned that it spit a little grease. That grease would get hotter than any platform that we've messed with before. And especially it's such a small component and with a ton of power going to it, and 1,000-mile desert race. So it would get hot, and we learned a ton about grease and a ton about boots. So we changed up some stuff there. And
Now, why couldn't you just go bigger in a sense? Like, what's the difference between say an RCV and is it just size and like a 930, right? Is everybody first like a 930 buggy axle, an IRS? Like, what's the difference? What would set? Is it the materials? Is it the design? Like, what sets the difference between a traditional off-the-shelf 930 CV and an RCV?
for UTV specifically, or just in general?
Not necessarily for UTV, and I guess it's not a fair comparison because a 930 is a much bigger axle, as I understand it, than a UTV. But is the concept the same? Traditional cage balls.
It is. Yep.
Okay.
So, I mean, really the difference between us and the other guy is just some engineering and how the actual cage and race is made and material. Materials, we're super stubborn. I mean, we are 100% American made from the source of the material through the whole process to your doorstep is all done in Rockford, Illinois. So it's
even the tough stuff like the cages and the balls are done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We manufacture the cages and the races.
How do you make the cage? This one thing I've never seen made. How do you make a cage?
It's a wild process. So it's the cage windows are the most impressive part to watch. We've actually got a machine now that starts from scratch and does it in one process.
Wow.
So it's an automatic feed, and I mean, our quality control over that particular product is the most important. You can't have any,
so is that whole
of the cage windows.
The whole cage then, is that all CNC? So it would come down on the inside, open it up, and then the outside, and then the windows?
Yeah, it's made, I mean, just like from a piece of, round solids material, and then we just chop it up and go after it and hollow it out and make cage windows. I mean, it's a wild process to see.
Yeah. And amazing tolerances on that. Amazing tolerances.
Yeah, the machine that actually does the heavy lifting of it goes in and checks it and probes it after each piece for within spec. And then we also have a quality control process that is after that checks it as well. So, because that's the most important thing, and you hear the infamous click, right? Everybody's like, oh, they click. Well, that's kind of an unfortunate side effect of strength. And, that all comes down to that.
How so? Why does it click? I mean, is it just because in my experience, it clicks normally at a steering angle, right? And then you don't, of course, want to hear that in a car CV.
Right.
But why you guys? Because I noticed that on even ones that I've owned over the years, that they at a high angle they still will make a little bit of that click, and it's not bad as I understand it.
No, it's essentially, so that ball bearing is essentially going from one side of the window to the other side because there's a little bit of movement there, and you need that because if it was tight, it would build heat, and if it was tight, you'd have to make it hard, and then if it was hard, then it, glass is hard and glass shatters, right? So there's a little bit of movement required in there, and that's all you're hearing is that ball going from one side of the cage to the other when it's at angle. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Those cages are those cages then what are they made out of? Are they made out of a 300M? Are they made out of just a mild, or what do they make those out of?
Most of them for the racing stuff, like all UTV is going to be 300M.
Interesting.
All we have a 930, 934, Series 30 that have a couple different options, but the races will always be like the Enter the Star, if you will.
Yeah.
That will always be 300M.
Gotcha.
For what we do. So, it really just comes down to wear. We've realized that the 300M seems to wear a little bit less.
Yeah.
And as well as absorb shock load. So.
Yep. So you're a kid that jumped on RCV and came on board at a time when they were making a push. But what were you doing before that? What got you into into playing with XJs and ZJs and that type of stuff?
Man, I don't know any better. I was 3 years old going around with my dad in a Jeep 1980 CJ5.
So it was in the family. It was in the family.
So yeah, my dad got me into this, and riding around, going to baseball and t-ball and all that in the Jeep. I loved it. And one of my dad's high school buddies got a Jeep. I'm older now. Fast forward to like 12, 13 years old, and my dad's buddy.
You remember CJ, YJ? What?
Oh yeah, it was a CJ7, 1986.
Nice.
And my dad was like, "Gotta get back into this." So he bought a 86 CJ7, Renegade, brown on brown. Man, it was classy.
Nice.
And so we got into a Jeep club, Central Alabama Off-Road Society. And for whatever reason, I picked up a camera and decided I was going to take pictures of all these rides we went on. And that just kind of spiraled into learning how, because at this time it was before social media, before YouTube.
So it's talking like forum time, going
forums,
back to
yeah.
But like early 2000s, 2001, 99 in there.
I probably got into it heavy, probably 02, 03.
So you were I remember, I think we talked about once before. You were a pirate kid.
Oh yeah, so, yeah.
You were in there stirring it up.
April of 2004, I think, was my pirate join date, because that was super important. I remember that right there. That's one of those crucial, like that's my pirate join date, social security number,
the important things. Right? Your join date and how many posts. If you had 3,000 contributing posts, right? Or Pirates are pretty interesting in its day. It really was a starter and a game changer for a lot of companies to utilize that platform to get the voice out, right, so to speak, and it backfired on some guys. I think of axles and drivelines. I remember the Redline Off-Road guy, Keith Warren. Right, he tried to launch an axle company and it backfired on him.
It was a live by the sword, die by the sword kind of situation on Pirate. And that's what was good about it, I think, too, because it educated you so well. Arguably a little aggressively, but it's not much different than social media today, I think. I mean, social will light you on fire if they don't like it.
Oh, yeah. Right? It was just more in a digestible format that we could go to and look at in our time.
Searching, right?
Yeah.
Searching was the nicest. And, search noob, right? That's the post everybody would make. But it was super helpful.
Yeah. And if the topic didn't interest you, I mean, it's not much different today. You just scroll along, right? So, but you didn't have an algorithm jamming it in your feed every 10 minutes. Like, no, I already saw this. I don't care about it.
Yeah, right? It was chronological, and that was like the most important thing. If it was new and updated, you could stay on top of it. But anyway, I digress. I miss
so
the forums,
you were in there posting up pictures. Now, was that of just East Coast rock bounce stuff? What were you taking pictures of? And just Jeep Club stuff?
So the Jeep Club thing, as I got older, I was taking pictures of the rides, but because I was so active on Pirate, I got involved in this thing called, I think it was Fab Stock. So Dan DeBose, he owned Blue Torch Fab at the time in Dothan, Alabama.
Yep.
And this guy had some problems with the build. It was kind of hacked together. So Dan gets in there and he's like, hey, bring it to my shop. We'll fix it. And it turned into a marketing media opportunity. Other companies got involved to sponsor it. Pirate 4x4 got involved to cover it for media. And Lance, I wish I could figure out exactly how it worked out, but Dan reached out to me, or vice versa. He gave me the opportunity to come down there and shoot it for Pirate 4x4. So this was like my first real, semi-professional photography, because all I really had done to this point was my own thing for rides, and I was doing a little bit of like vehicle features. So I got into the rock bouncing
So
scene.
on this one, you were going to get paid. This one, it was like maybe put a couple dollars in there, or was it just about the tick in the box, like the notoriety of somebody using your stuff?
I think it was what do we call it? Was it fun bucks or exposure bucks? I think I was getting paid in exposure.
An early version. But back then we were all, that was how, in some respects, I think you got your foot in the door, right?
Yeah.
You took pictures, you posted them you did what you could, you stuck your foot in the door, not necessarily to get paid because you loved doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, at this time I was 16, 17 years old. So,
so you're pretty young.
What if I made a little bit of money off of it? That was amazing, and then maybe I did. I can't remember. It was so long ago, but
I'm going to say you put in on that just for the fun, just for the exposure at that age. Heck yeah. I'm putting it on just for the fun.
So I go down there, I shoot pictures, I do a gallery, do a write-up, a whole thing on Pirate, do the post, I think I even had like a page on Pirate. You had the front page with all the articles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So did that. But while I was down there, I got the opportunity to meet Tim Peel, who owned Crawl Magazine at the time. And he was like, yeah, we're going riding at Grey Rock. You should come. And I'm like, okay, well, that's where I grew up riding. That's right down the road from my house. Sure, I'll be there. So I went to Grey Rock that next day or the day after or whatever from Fabstock and shopped for Crawl Magazine, got pictures in the magazine and started working for Crawl that day. So
yeah, it was 04. That must have been early.
So this would have been 07 at this point. So, I did like 4 years of Jeep photography in my Jeep club. And then I started my own little website, because I needed, it was before anything. So I was photo bucketing. I needed someplace to host my photos. So I figured out Smug Mug was my website of choice.
Photo bucket, man. Yeah. I haven't heard the term photo bucket in a few years.
Yeah. So I was like coding the forums and like image tagging and trying to embed it into the posts. And so I was doing all that at, 15, 16 years old. And, but it was cool. So anyway, this Fabstock thing, Pirate 4x4, Crawl Magazine, it all just kind of fell together. And I guess I was okay at taking pictures. So that's kind of what got me started in the whole, marketing, media, off-road world. And man, I mean, working for Crawl was super fun at 18.
What'd you learn there? Because I feel like for me, when I was younger, I went to work, not far from that time frame. I moved to California and went to work and helped Jim and Marty and Kurt launch Dirt Sports Magazine. And so I knew nothing about, I knew a lot about magazines. I had placed ads in all the books. That's what you did back then, right? So Peterson's and Four Wheeler and JP and those were, and of course, during that time frame, made friends with all the editors, got to know all of them during that time frame. But when I left and I actually went to work for a magazine, man, I learned a lot. It was eye-opening. It wasn't all about just taking the best picture, having the best writer. Like there's that whole other side component as well with the sales aspect and being a publisher and, timelines and deadlines and print and this and that. And I learned a lot during that time frame.
Well, I didn't. So I was like just the photo guy. That's all he wanted me for. He was like, go to this event, shoot photos, write an article. And at that time, I think it was pretty good money for a 18-year-old.
What were they paying back then?
I want to say it was like, don't quote me on this, but I want to say it was $400 for pictures, and it was 25 cents per word to write the article. So I'm over here trying to write books. You know what I mean? I'm trying to have a 5,000 word article or something crazy like that. But
So were you considered freelance or were you full time? Yeah,
yeah,
freelance.
I was freelance. So
Which gave you ability to work for anybody, which is,
yeah, well, and I got the opportunity later on. I worked for Prime Media for a while, so I got to work for Peterson's Four Wheel and Off Road and met those
nice.
guys. And
What year was that?
man, that was a little bit later on, so that would have probably been 13, 14.
Yeah, later on.
2013, 2014. So I was just now, I was in college, about to graduate. I got the opportunity to go on Ultimate Adventure in 2013.
Awesome.
And that's that's the highlight four-wheeling experience right now. Just the time in my life.
For
it all
you,
lined up.
that's the coup de grace.
That was it. Yeah. If you were to ask me what's my number one experience, I'd say going on the Ultimate.
Which one was it and where did you go?
So this one, it was like Alabama, Georgia, Florida. And I think, what was it? Man, for the highlight of my life, I should remember more details. The Florida thing I remember in detail because it was so unique to me. We went to this mud park down there, and the mud was
on
itchy.
it? Who was on it? You remember?
I mean, it was all the so you had Keith Bailey and Sam Gillis, the cronies there.
Yep.
Andrew Hoyt was there. I think he was with Falcon at the time. I met Cooper over there at Off-Road Power Products.
Yeah.
Fred, Dave, Fred Williams. It was a good group. I actually rode with Trent McGee and I think we were in, I don't even remember what vehicle we were in, because I've since then I've been able to be fortunate enough to go on a couple Ultimate Adventures, and they kind of all blend together with the lack of sleep and the road days and all that. But yeah, that first one, man, just seeing it. I mean, obviously I was a magazine kid, so I read about it.
I think
for
those
years.
Ultimate Adventures set the stage for a lot of us.
Oh yeah.
I think my first Ultimate Adventure was maybe 2001.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I want to say 2001 because I think I still have a gear bag around here that's like 01. And then I think I moved to LA in 03, 04, but I think that was like 01, 02. Larry Trim, we had started Trail Ready, and we went in the Grand. I did one where we did the Rubicon, and we did Oregon, and then we came up, and I didn't do the Washington side. I actually came back to work, and Larry went and did the rest. And then the next year we did one where I drove he built a solid axle Liberty.
Oh yeah, I remember that thing. The red one.
And so I drove it cross country and did one the next year. Even though I was kind of leaving Trail Ready Road Armor at that point. But those early ones, and then I jumped back into it when I left the magazines and I went over at Light Force. We jumped back in, borrowed a TJ from Mac, and we did that. And I want to say that was 08 or 09 that we did that. But those early ones, they were a little love-hate with me. Like, I don't know that I was always, I don't know. And they actually spawned, and I've talked about this before, they spawned the whole JKX series for me a little bit with Mel, and maybe helped refine that for me because I never was a fan of the Death March, so to speak.
Oh yeah.
And if you've been on one, but I 1000% was a fan of the wheeling, the people, the spirit of just break it and fix it, get it moving. And just the camaraderie and the things that would come out of it. I mean, I still vividly have this memory of underneath they had built a Super Duty, like a 6-liter Super Duty as the magazine truck. And
was this the one on Michelin's?
It was the one on the Michelin's, 42s, I think it was at the time, like a Michelin 42 XML. And it was broke, the rear spring perch, the pin had broken, the spring had slid. And me and Jeff Nassy are underneath of it. And he's like undoing the bolts. And he's like, last night when I was replacing this pin and I tightened it down, I was like, I pity the sucker that's going to have to undo this. Here I am the next day in the rain, laying underneath this truck, wedged in a ravine, and I'm trying to undo these bolts, right? It just, like, there's just so many of those weird memories that pop up that you have, but I think for a lot of us early on, it kind of set the stage for adventure. Like you learned that it was possible to work, have fun, and see some of the countryside, right? With a good group of people. And yeah,
So
I can't say enough.
in '01, how many years in was that then for Ultimate Adventure? I mean,
I think they'd been doing it 2 or 3 years, 2 years maybe. I
yeah.
think it was 2 years. I want to say 98 or 99 was maybe the first year.
Yeah,
So
98 or 99 sounds familiar to me,
yeah,
but
it was the only, it wasn't that far in. And so, I mean, I didn't feel like it was super refined and, as none of them were. I mean, they were all a little crazy,
yeah.
so to speak.
Well,
But
being that you were that early, you didn't you didn't build it up in your mind like I did, right? Like I was reading about it in magazines for years and years and years as a kid, looking for, 10 years of it probably. So,
yeah, I can see
I had
that.
a different perception of it going into it. So the Death March was, totally doable for me. Like,
See, I was just
whatever it took.
excited for a kid from Washington to get on the road and go see some sights. I was like, hot damn. Like, I mean, I'm in Pennsylvania, like with the Amish. Like,
Yeah.
I as a kid had never traveled outside of, and it set the stage. I'd never really traveled outside. I spent a little time in Chicago when I was younger, couple of weeks, thought I was going to move there, move back. I never really spent time seeing the backcountry. And that, to give, I think Rick credit and the whole UA team, I love that Rick takes the back road, right? Because I think we all live that way today. Like he put that in us to take the back road and see more sights. Any dummy can take the freeway, right? That's easy. But I love just, and again, if you think about that time frame, it was not look at your phone and MapQuest, and like it was literally, let's look at the Rand McNally map and open it to page 49 and see which back road to go, right? I mean, it was like a true navigating, this is where we're going, we don't want to take the freeway. It was cool. It was really cool.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, for me, the ones that I went on were some of what the others tell me, like Trent McGee, who is I think the only one to ever go on every single one of them.
I think Trent and Clifton are pretty long term on all those. I think Clifton may be right in there too.
Yeah, and Clifton, I think he maybe missed the one that I went on my 13. I can't remember. Like I said, they blur together. But
yeah.
Trent says the ones that I went on were his least favorite. He said, those were terrible. I don't know why you enjoyed it. And I was like, man, that was everything to me. Like we were in the swamps of Florida. That does sound terrible, right? But,
yeah,
for me, I was just the hired gun photographer, passenger. Like I didn't have any skin in the game, really. It was just all fun, get the shot. I remember almost getting run over by Cooper, I think, maybe. And that was, in the mud, knee deep in the mud and whatever. So super fun to me. We did one where it was raining the entire trip.
Yeah.
And for whatever reasons, we strapped canoes to the top. So we carried around these canoes, I guess, just in case we got flooded and washed away because of all the rain. But, just, I don't know. For me, it was the highlight. But yeah, so, got the opportunity to work crawl, got the opportunity to do Prime Media with the 4-wheel and off-road stuff. And,
yeah. Did you freelance for them? You were doing some freelance for Peterson's then?
Yeah. Peterson's was a great opportunity for me. I really enjoyed what those guys let me do. I mean, they got me up in the helicopter. My first King of the Hammers was technically with the marketing agency, but also I freelanced for Peterson's while I was there a little bit. And I don't know if they actually used anything that I did, but I actually shot.
Why you didn't want to go to work for them directly, or was that still like a transition time where they weren't really bringing people on, or?
For me, I think it was just a fun little extra thing because, for full time, I mean, I was kind of just doing a whole bunch of stuff at that time in my life. So I was in college. I put myself through college building websites of all things. I just,
nice.
I guess I figured out that whole forum thing wasn't so hard to code some SMF forums and what's HTML, right? So
yeah.
I built some websites and got to know some guys in the industry. Like the first Wide Open Designs website was hacked together by yours truly. So I was just dabbling, I guess, giving whatever I could do, that was convenient and, easy
Now
for them.
your overhead was low. You were living at home. You
Oh,
were
yeah.
yeah. There you go. See, that's
Yeah.
the low overhead is the key.
Yeah. As long as I could pay for my college classes and I could pay for gas in my Jeep, that's really all I was worried about.
Yeah, nice.
So, yeah.
So when did the adulting set in then? When does it was the adult job RCV or you had one before?
So this marketing firm I was working for probably Crawl or maybe even myself at the time doing the photography because, I did these photo shoots every time a buggy would come out. I did this Ricky B photography thing. So that's really kind of was my I don't want to say steady income, but that's what I tried to push as a job. And then that and the web design. But so I met this guy on the hillside in Arkansas and he offered me a job and I was like, I can't right now. I'm in college.
This is the guy that owns the agency.
Yeah. Yeah. So Navigation Advertising was the name of the agency and Christian Hidalgo. And so
Did they specialize in automotive or was it just?
Not at all. No, he had this client, Chad Molitor. He was doing this thing called 4x4 Nation, which is still around. But it was basically just a media channel of entertainment. He did some videos, calendars, stuff at the time. And, but he hired this agency to go out there and shoot the race, shoot him doing the race for a video or something like that. And the guy was like, I love this is great, So he was wanting to bring me in and start a motorsports division, which ultimately he did. I think he watched my Facebook until I graduated college and then was like, hey, let's go. So offered me a job. I moved up to Tennessee, worked for him for a few years, brought in a bunch of clients and did the motorsports thing.
Who are the clients? Anybody notable or anybody?
Just, yeah, basically my friends that I've talked into it. So I had the RCV, of course.
Yeah.
I did a wide open design. I brought them in for a year or two.
Nice.
RLC Motorsports is a diesel performance place in Tennessee.
Nice.
That I knew and brought them in. And I had a couple smaller, I think I did something for Goolsby Customs. I can't remember if that was with the agency or if that was solo. But they did like hot rods in Alabama and they're a big deal now. Yeah.
So now having worked for the agency, what was your takeaway? What did you learn from working for the agency?
Because,
every step you learn something somewhere, right? And I think agencies, I think you have the ability to take in a lot, right? You learn a lot of different facets. Website building, photography, but the business end, I think sometimes there's some stuff to be learned there.
Analytics, because as an agency, most of what your job is doing is prove your worth, right? Like, what am I paying you for? Well, this is what you're paying me for, right? You hold up some statistics. So I learned a ton about tracking, and how that stuff works. The difference between, views and engagements and what really matters and how to get to the customer and what is just, brand awareness versus targeted marketing and all that stuff. So like, it sounds generic, now, but it was pretty specific stuff back then for me. And I was able to kind of build on that. And now I do that stuff every day. And it seems, I don't know that I know it very well, but I know enough just to be dangerous. So,
well, I think like all agencies, that's what it is. Agencies always have to flex a little bit that their value is worth more than the person inside, right? So I think that but learning the analytics and then just being able to package up what that value is a skill, right? To be able to put that together to say, and to present it to your client, your customer and say, yeah, look, this is what we did, why we did. And, here's the results or here's the reasoning. You don't always have to understand the ROI on it or that investment, but you have to understand that it's leading or it's making a difference, right? The customer does. So I think agencies, there's a lot to be learned there for those that can shadow or go to work for one. I think that some of the best people I know now worked for that own their own agencies, worked for an agency, learn the skill, learn the craft or the trade, and they bone out, right? They go start their own.
There's something to be said for knowing the the business side of it for sure. You know, knowing the
And your
back end
segment,
is
right? Everybody has their niche. Some people really, you know, they know Jeeps, they know trucks. Some people, that's not their wheelhouse. They know Mustangs and American Muscle, and some people know boats, right?
yeah,
Know
know
your
your
niche.
customer, right?
Yeah, know your niche, because I think that that will make your life a lot easier for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a professional friend maker at this point, right? And that makes every single day at my job a little bit easier
So
because
you're at the agency, you're the truck guy, you're the Jeep guy, you're the automotive guy. You got these guys, you're bringing in a little revenue, and then what's the split? Where do you leave?
man, I was completely happy doing my thing, and RCV came to me and they were like, "Hey, you know, this is the number. We want you to come work full time." And the number wasn't great
And
at
so
that
you were
time.
like, okay, I'm going to poach this client and move sideways.
There was so many benefits to it. You know, one, it was focus, right? Because I was doing all these things, and half of the things I was doing were a little bit. It was a challenge. Challenges are good, but you know, I didn't necessarily
Wasn't your
love.
passion. Wasn't your passion.
Yeah, you know, we had some political clients, we had some all sorts of stuff, right? Local shops, local
Yep.
businesses, and you know, I'd have to do some medical stuff. Like we had all sorts of stuff, and don't get me wrong, I work is work, and I enjoyed it, and I learned a lot. But the opportunity to be focused in on exactly what I care about, and you know, I feel like I'm now Hank Hill with CVs and CV accessories, but uh, you know, I enjoy it. So I had the opportunity to work from home. You know, they were like, because we're located in Rockford, Illinois. And at this time, I'm in Tennessee. And man, I was four wheeling. I was going to the mountains. I was doing my thing. I didn't want to leave Tennessee. So, they understood that, and we worked a deal. And I was their first ever remote employee before remote was cool.
Yeah,
You know,
that's a hard decision. I went through that a little bit myself, but where I had moved back to Washington and had an offer to go to work, and yeah, I was Nitto's first remote employee, and and I just at the time couldn't, for my own family, couldn't move back to California,
yeah,
so
I understand.
hard decision.
Yeah, and working from home is not, it's not as glamorous as it seems to me, at least. I crave, because I mean, a little bit more about my history. So I was homeschooled, and,
Ah,
that's why, I mean, clearly I'm, socially awkward, right? And so being homeschooled, then I went straight from homeschooled to college to kind of did my own thing in college. It really prepped me well for college, honestly, because it's all about self motivation, and that's all I'd ever known. And everything was self motivation. I did my own website company. Like it was all me being self motivated every single day to get up and get something done. But I crave social. And when I worked for the agency and I got to go to work and sit in office and, go make coffee and bullshit with the people, around the coffee maker and stuff like that, I loved it. So
yeah,
going
something
back,
changed because you're good at it. I mean, I've known you, boy, I don't know, maybe probably 8, 9, 10 years now. I
yeah,
mean, I feel like I've
no,
known you a while, and I've never thought that you're socially awkward. You're always you always have a smile. You always got something to say. You always have a lot of questions. You always have a lot of
well,
questions.
and I think that's the off road stuff. That's being in the off road club because I was a young kid just hanging out with adults the whole time. So I was 13 years old. That was my number one passion. Was off roading and learning about this stuff and talking to these guys, and so I feel like that was huge for my social development, if you will, if we're going to talk about child sociology. But
So you
uh,
took the job working from home. And so that was a first, which again, the work from home is sometimes I feel like you're working more because you always feel like you got to provide your value or your worth, right? So you're always at least I feel that way. Like I've always felt like I put in a lot of hours beyond 5 o'clock, right, or early in the morning as well, just because to make sure that I'm putting in that time and that effort. So it's challenging.
it is, and honestly, the thing I miss the most is in anybody that has a job that knows this feeling. You get done with your day, it's 5 o'clock or whatever time you get done, you
Yeah.
get in your vehicle, you turn the radio on, it's summertime, you roll the windows down, and you just have the best
Yeah.
15 to 45 minutes or whatever your commute is.
I do miss the punch out. I've been
Yeah,
11 years now, this position. And sometimes it drives my wife crazy because while I'm here, she gets home at 6:30, 7 o'clock, and I'm like, "Hey, want to go eat? You want to go out to
Yeah.
dinner? You want to go to the mall?" I'm like, I'm jonesing to get the hell out of the house, and she's like, "I've been working all day, and I just enjoyed my drive home. I just want to crash, you know." It's
Yeah.
just that is a challenge, but in the relationship sphere there.
Yeah, my wife, she's an esthetician now, but she started when I met her, she was a bartender. And so she was just peopled out. She was over people. She had enough
Yeah.
people. And when she would get home, all I wanted was to go with people. Let's go out to dinner. Let's go hang out with so and so. It's this, it's that. And she would be so much happier just curling up on the couch with a blanket, watching a movie. And I wanted to go, go, go all the time because I've been home stuck, just, talking to my computer screen.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge. Where'd you meet your wife?
So I met her. She was my bartender. That's
She
the
was the
super
bartender.
super romantic story there. Yeah. So she worked at the
So you're
Sam's
the
Sports
socially
Grill.
awkward kid at the bar. What are you doing there? Just hitting on the ladies?
Picking
What
up
are you
chicks,
doing?
man. That's what I
Picking
was
up
doing.
chicks.
Yeah. So met her, and
Now,
yeah,
did you have your own place, or are you still at home at this point?
no. This is I was long after home. I've
All right,
actually
good.
I had a house. I had a house with two of my best friends. We
Nice.
were living the bachelor life here in Tennessee. And
Nice. Doing the
yeah.
downtown Nashville thing and
Oh,
enjoying
yeah.
life.
We were pros. If you want to know anything about downtown Nashville in like 2000 and, oh man, golly, 2016 to 2022, 2021, I was your guy. Now, not
Nice.
so much, but
It's changed a lot. It's changed a lot.
yeah, 2016 was prime for Nashville. But yeah,
So you're at the bar. What's the name of the bar?
so Sam's Sports Grill, the best if you ever
Sam's
find
Sports
yourself
Grill.
in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Best hot wings. I'm a little bit of a hot wing connoisseur. There's three passions I have in life, and one of which is hot wings. But so I was there for the hot wings. That's it, right?
Yeah.
And I just got to know this bartender a little bit, and one thing led to another. I actually one night, late night, she wasn't working. She saw me there, and I was there by myself, just to get hot wings, right? And ended up sitting there until the lights turned on in the bar, which is never a good feeling.
Yeah.
You don't want to sit there until bar closes and the lights turn on. But yeah, so and things have been. That was years ago now, something like that.
You asked her out. You're like, pretty cryptic there. What happened? She said,
Yes.
"Heck yeah, Ricky B, I'm in." So how'd that go down?
So I asked her. Yeah, so I asked her. I think we exchanged Snapchats. That was the only way of communicating. I didn't get her number. I got her Snapchat because she was keeping me at a distance. I was just this guy in the bar, right?
Who loved hot wings
and
so
Jeeps. Much. Still do. But anyway, there was this Cole Swindell song that was really popular back then, and like one of the lines in it was, "You turned my one drink order into two," which is, so every time it would come on the radio, I would Snapchat it to her, and it was kind of my thing. Well, I finally talked her into going out one night, and like I said, I was a Nashville pro. So I took her to this singer-songwriter thing where this guy picks all these up-and-comers to come and play. It was called Whiskey Jam. And this guy he discovered John Party, Chris Stapleton, Love and Theft. This is kind of the make it or break it kind of show, but it was like low key, only the people in the industry really knew about it at that time. Now it's a huge deal on Broadway, and it's a concert every night. But
wow.
Anyway, so I take her there, and this Cole Swindell character was there, and he was just hanging out, wasn't going to play. Ends up getting on stage, playing song. It's like, well, this feels kind of meant to be, right? We go from Snapchatting this song, and now we're here on our first date, and he plays this. So here we are. So gave it a shot, and now we're married with a dog.
No little mini Ricky B's in the forecast there?
I don't know. Well, we'll see about that. This dog thing, man, it's going real good. So we'll see how that goes.
How long have you and Morgan been married?
Just almost a year actually now. So we dated for a while. I proposed to her 3 years ago. We had a very long engagement.
Nice.
Just because of circumstances, things got busy. All of her friends decided to get married too. So we were like, let's just take our time and do our thing.
Did the COVID affect you, or was it?
Oh, well, funny you ask. I actually had COVID the day I proposed.
Oh,
I had a fever. Yeah, so I wasn't thinking clearly. I had a fever, But yeah, so it was all part of.
So it was all kind of post-COVID that it went down, but still.
It was, yeah, but it was the first time I'd gotten it. This was like the OG. This was the real COVID. I'm pretty sure. I
Knocked you down pretty good.
Oh yeah, so it
Yeah.
actually. I had this whole plan in my head. This is going to be great. I was going to Trail Hero for an event. I was going to do the Trail Hero event, and I was flying her in, and then we were going to do like a little vacation on the way home and experience a couple of days of Trail Hero, and then we're going to go to Vegas, and we're going to go to Sedona. Had this big old plan. Well, fly her in, we do Trail Hero. I start getting sick on the drive to Vegas, and then come to find out, I'm dying in Vegas. I'm struggling. So I go get an at-home test at the CVS there on the Strip.
Yep.
And it's positive. So I go to the hotel room and I corner myself in, just weather the storm. We leave the next day, headed towards home. I'm still in my head. I'm like, salvage this plan. She doesn't know what I have in store. So, so Vegas didn't go great, whatever. I get to Flagstaff and that's all I can do. I can't drive anymore. I'm dying. So I think we were in Flagstaff for 2 days at a random hotel that I stopped at, which, by the way, if you have a respiratory sickness, 7,500 feet is probably not the place to stop when you're used to 600 feet. So, live and learn there. But anyway, I start to feel better finally.
You were the traveling spreading machine.
Oh man, yeah, just, she was pumping the fuel for me. That was about it. I was just trying to stay alive in hotel rooms and pent up. But anyway, eventually I got feeling better and I salvaged it. And because the plan was always to end up at the Grand Canyon. So that's where I ultimately proposed to her with a 100-degree fever or whatever. And, here we are. It's working out so great.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And I mean, you guys had a pretty long engagement there, so she's your wing woman.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it takes a special kind to, like, for our lifestyle, right? You travel for work all the time, and you're in the, doing things.
It does. Yeah, it does. I mean, for me and my wife, we learned early on. She always said yes, right? There was always hey, you want to go do this? You want to go do that? So yeah, she was always said yes, and that always meant a lot to me, right? So it was I didn't have to force her to go; she wanted to go. So it was, and after a while, you just become that. It's like your best friend, right? Like, hey, you want to go do this? Yeah. Sure. Yeah, you want to go to Costco? Sure. You want to go to Trail Jam? Sure. So yeah, it does make it easier, especially when you work for a company where you travel an awful lot.
Yeah,
100%.
I'll bring her occasionally to a trade show, and she'll, hook T-shirts for me or something like that, and it's always a huge help. And we make it a little bit of a vacation after it. Some of these places are pretty cool. We do an event in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, which is a vacation place, and
nice.
Taking her to Jeep Beach. We're doing Jeep Beach as RCV for the first time in like 10 years.
Oh, nice. RCV hasn't done Jeep Beach.
So I haven't personally done RCV, or excuse me, I haven't done Jeep Beach for RCV. I've gone to Jeep Beach and I've kind of like marketed and schmoozed and, kind of being seen.
Your soaring eagle foot pegs at,
No, but I might need to this year.
They got a great selection. I do love Jeep Beach because of the uniqueness of Jeep Beach. It's the only Jeep show you can go to where you can just find every possible bolt-on knick-knack that there is for a Jeep. And I love it. I'm pretty sure Jeep Beach invented the duck. I'm pretty sure that I've never been to a show and seen so many. Pigeon Forge may have a close second on that. Right. But man, Jeep Beach, it's just, it's pretty surreal, the amount of just knick-knacky stuff that you wouldn't think, like 5 vendors of foot pegs. It's just like
well, and yeah, I mean, perhaps RCV doing, hardcore axle performance company doing Jeep Beach might be a little risky, but I'm betting on the numbers
You still got some hardcore guys there. I can joke about it, but the reality is that there's still people spending money there. There's still Dana 60 axles being sold there, right? There's still, 37s and B-locks and, exhaust. And so I think as an upgrade and as a performance-based mod, like I would think RCB would be fine there. It's easy to joke about the 24s and all the bling, but there is still a hardcore base of Jeeper there and enthusiast there. So,
oh yeah. I mean, I went for fun, not for fun necessarily entirely, right? There's always an angle, right? I had, but I truly enjoyed myself at Jeep Beach, even though I'm not four-wheeling on the rocks and
it's different.
doing all that.
It's different. And they still have their mud holes and they got a lot of closed park stuff they go play at. And I think some of that area has gotten tougher to go play at, but it's a lifestyle. I mean, the reality of it is it's a Harley lifestyle.
Oh yeah, the most accessorized vehicle out there, right? So
yeah,
and you're with like-minded individuals at whatever stage. You're still the core. You're still similar in that regard. So I don't know, but we'll see if it's a good show. RCV did it, 8 or 9 years ago. We did it with maybe Carnage, I think was the company out of Miami. We kind of went in with them and kind of helped support the booth or whatever.
Yeah.
But like I said, that was before my time, so I don't know the details on it. But so I've got a booth this time. We'll see how it goes. But
nice.
Either way, we'll get some content. We'll market it and
content. Now, are you in on all? You got all the influencers? You all buttoned up? You got?
Oh yeah, influencers, man. So I was so against the influencer thing when it all first started out. I guess influencers have always technically.
Yeah, influencers have been around 30 years, right? It's just
but it wasn't.
It's diluted
everybody
itself a little bit.
Yeah, it wasn't everybody with a Jeep. Now they have a blah 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 page. Something something JK or something something JL or JL Gypsy or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Especially all the girls and the Jeep girls with all their pages. I was so against it. I was like, this is not any value here. This is just maybe if we were selling like Coca-Cola or something generic that everybody could want. Blah blah blah. No, it's value. Some of these influencers are providing great value and they know their stuff and they're actually doing market research and figuring out all the details and providing analytics and reports and it's a whole world. But
I would agree. The good ones are the good ones treat like a business, I think. As much as that, I guess I hate to say that, but the good ones are treating it like a business. They understand the overall value and sometimes the value can just be not so much the hard reports or, this is my reach or this is that. It can just be the little things that, seem to carry a lot of weight sometimes. So hard to gauge, right? Sometimes you got a guy that's got 300,000 followers and, you never really feel he moves the needle. Then you got another guy that's got 25,000 followers and it's like, man, I just sold a set of axles to that guy because he, was mentioning why he has them, it's hard to sometimes to gauge and wrap your head around outside of the impression. A lot of people get checked up in the impression end of things. But I think even that, as we've grown and media has grown and influencers grown, that maybe that's diluted itself a little bit. Like, I was like, how many influencers are from North America? How many from Venezuela, from Pakistan, like India, like, I want to sell a product here, right? That's for me, that's what I want to sell here in North America. Don't really care about ticking the box in Canada because that's not on my budget, right? That doesn't hit my box, so to speak. So that's always, I think it's a challenge. And I think the good influencers recognize what and want to know what you're up against so they can help tailor to that. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a big difference.
And some too, it's a qualitative source of information or an authoritative source of information, I guess I should say. So, some of these influencers are not necessarily just influencers, but they're, big personalities in the industry that are respected and professional and, seen
Yeah, the
as
good ones.
educated.
The problem I think in a lot of influencers is that goes too far to their head and they don't realize it's there's a lot. I hear this from a couple people that they go, yeah, you've been doing this 4 years. Like there's a lot more to learn than just 4 years. So when you bought a Jeep, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's fair, but also like I don't think you can be the expert in 4 years, but I think you can provide a lot of value in educating why you went with something or how you went with something or how that product performs. You
Those
know?
those are the best relationships, or the
Yeah.
person that needs it or wants it, not the random light company that may come out to you from China and say, hey, we'll send you some lights if you do a post or whatever. Like that value is just,
Yeah. And it's
so. But the guy that needs something, that wants, that researches it, that, clearly shows a need. I mean, for me recently, have you heard of the Peck brothers? Are you familiar with those guys? They're out of Utah. They're very new.
don't know if that one
Um,
rings a bell.
very, very new. And, I went on the 24-hour hell and back with Flex Rocks and Rollovers, and the Peck brothers were on there and they were doing their thing and got to know them a little bit. And they do these viral videos, not so much a hardcore YouTuber necessarily, but they do some social media content. And they did like a snow donut thing, and the U joint just exploded out of the front end and went flying, right? And they reached out to me and it's like, hey, we have this problem, do you have a solution? And like, we're building a relationship out of that, not necessarily a full, influencer marketing push, but
No, that seems like it though. That seems like it is.
that situation, I love that because they're showing a need for the product, and it works. It's a natural push. It's not a hard sell at all for their customer or their
So being that
audience.
you've grown up in the marketing sphere on that stuff, where do you see it heading? I mean, where does it go from here?
It's tough. Like, we talk about magazines and ad space and magazines and stuff, and I think it's way harder to get in front of eyeballs now. And everybody's got an opinion, and people are
Is it
looking.
harder to track? I mean, I feel like back in the day, it was easy to track, you know?
Yeah, well, for my particular product, it's a thinking product. Like I can't do it. It's not like a rock light or something that could be an impulse buy. It's something you got to think about. You got to research. So, like, how many times do you see the brand or the product before you buy it? Like, I can't seem to track that. Like an ad. You put an ad up, you follow the clicks, you do the checkout page or the success page or whatever, and you were able to track that. Okay, they saw that ad, they bought, right? Man, that happens so rarely. You know what I mean? Like they're going to go to your website, they're going to look at it, then they're going to go price check, and they're going to go ask their buddies, and they're going to think about it because dang, it's so expensive. Do I really need that? And then they're going to price other competitors and options and blah blah blah. And then they're going to come back. And how do you track that all in between?
Yeah, that's a tough one. You guys have a percentage of like, you say for every, I don't know, for every 100 guys that come through, you get maybe 1% that buy, 2% that buy, 5%. Like, did you guys have a?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I could probably dig that up. I don't know off the top of my head, but I care probably the most about just like right now I do different campaigns of different segments, and right now it's Jeep brand awareness because in the Jeep world it's so new, it's so big now, it's blown up, and there's so many new people that just know the trendy stuff, that's gets on the bandwagon and follows whatever the influencers are talking about, and it's a lot of group think going on. So my strategy right now is just eyeballs, is just education, is just hey, we exist, we're an option here.
I mean, JKJL alone, I think you got 1.7 million rigs in the market, right?
It's
I mean,
nuts.
that's at least that's trolling for a small percentage somewhere in there that they're going to need axles.
Yeah, and the JK, well, actually, I think it's the JL now. That's our number one product in the whole RCV line. As far as like single SKUs sold. So followed, interestingly enough, by the Can-Am rear axle. I think is one of our top selling products. So
I can understand that. I know a few people that have blown Can-Am rear axle
Yeah,
CVs, so
yeah. Which, and that's primarily racing, right? So that's, so far, not only is it a different platform, but it's a different world. The Jeep guy is recreational and four-wheeling and fun, and, they want peace of mind and
what markets do you
confidence.
see emerging then? I mean, do you put any eggs in the Bronco basket? Are you, you know,
Man, the Bronco, from a market, I feel a little disappointed from the Bronco.
oh, I hear that, and I don't know. I'll give you my go ahead and tell me your disappointment. I'll give you my take on it.
So the four-wheeling aspect of it, the percentage of people going and you go buy a Jeep Rubicon, the percentage of people that are going four-wheeling with a Jeep Rubicon are far greater, in my opinion, than the person that bought a Sasquatch Bronco to go four-wheeling. Those, if they go four-wheeling, it's just dirt roads or something like that. They're not really, plus the aftermarket support makes it so much harder and so much more expensive in a Bronco to really build it.
Yeah, I think there's products out there. I mean, I just think it needs time. It needs time to mature and grow.
Yeah,
So,
it hit at a hard time. Everybody was excited about it, and it was delayed, delayed, and then delayed. And now,
well, I think
times are a little tougher.
I think manufacturers were pretty hyped to get product on a Bronco, get it moving, but maybe didn't recognize like how many Broncos are they really going to get out the door, right?
Yeah,
In a year. So, and yet consistently Jeep has had 100,000 units, 80,000 units go out the door every year for 10 years, right? So, that first, I think there's probably only, and I haven't looked at the statistics in a while, it's probably only 150,000, 160,000 maybe Broncos
total.
out there. Yeah, total.
Wow.
Total. So I mean that first, I think they just tipped 100,000 last year, and then what this year? I mean, it's not very many in comparison to Jeep, because Jeep had a solid, like they were getting close. Jeep cheats it. It's like Wrangler brand is everything. JT, 2-door, 4-door. So they were getting close to the number, but it's still like not. It's not a lot of rigs.
Yeah.
I mean, think about 80,000 JLs out the door in a year. Last year, year before that. I mean, that's a lot.
No, and that's a great point. And in that I wasn't that privy to. So, I would say for us, seeing sale, like we make Bronco axles, and it's a very popular item because fortunately for us, there's two things that fail in a Bronco immediately, and it's steering and axles.
Yep.
So,
I just think it needs time to mature. I think it'll settle in, it'll mature. It does. What I've found in some of our, research is that it's a new owner, which is good. It's a Ford owner. He's got an F-250 or 350 in the driveway. He's got a, Mustang in the garage to play with, and now he's added a Bronco to the mix. Or he's got an Expedition in the driveway and he added a Bronco. So I think that, economy wise scares everybody a little bit, right? Because the first thing to go when the economy drops is the play toys. So that could be a challenge. But I think as it settles in, they get more units out the door. It'll just kind of keep growing and keep, pushing forward. But the guys that are making parts are selling parts. But I think a lot of them, I was talking to somebody that said, we got stock adjusted on. They wanted to send back some stock because, they thought they'd sell more and they didn't. And that was when the Bronco launched. And I was like, well, how many Broncos do you think we're going to get out the door? I mean, if you do the averages or percentages of how many people accessorize their Jeep, it's a decent number. And there's some SEMA data to back it up, but it's not a massive number. And it starts, it's wheels and tires, it's bike rack, it's like all the kind of common stuff.
Right.
And somewhere in that mix of top 10 is like a leveling kit or lift kit, that people aspire to do. And it may be cost prohibitive to do a leveling or a lift on, a Bronco. I think is, for some, depending on what you're doing or what you're getting quoted, it may not be as cheap as a Jeep,
Right. Yeah. Well, and, we're seeing too that comparing the Bronco to the Jeep is a little bit unfair, because I think the person that's looking at it is looking at the like it's a Toyota competitor too, right? Like so, it's the Tacoma, it's the 4Runner competitor.
Yeah,
So
price point, they're all right in there. 100%. I think it's a Wrangler competitor, right?
oh,
But
for
I don't know
sure,
that it's easy to say that, but I think it's still I still think it doesn't necessarily poach Wrangler sales. I think there's a very small percentage of that. I think it poaches probably more from other arenas and maybe an expedition. It might be cannibalized from an F-150,
yeah,
right? Somebody that buys that. I mean, F-150 sales are kind of down right now here in April, but hard to say. Hard to
yeah.
say.
It's been an interesting platform for us. I
But
mean,
you guys are selling a few, right? I mean,
oh,
you got
absolutely,
some.
yeah. No, it came out the gate hard. Because the guys that got them first were the enthusiasts, were
Yep.
the passionate ones. So
Yep.
those were the guys that were going four wheeling. So it hit hard at the beginning, and then it slowed down a little bit since then. But it's still I mean, if the OEM steering rack and like so many revisions have been made to make it more reliable to let these guys push it a little bit harder, then I mean, because right now I think everybody's scared to put bigger than a 35 on it, really, and I mean, it's absolutely capable of a 37,
Yeah.
38.
Yeah. Wheel well wise for sure.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't, it just may, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I think that, I mean, this, again, I've talked about this before. I think the scary part is that Ford showed Stellantis that they don't need a solid axle. So I think you can probably see down the turnpike based on EPA mileage and everything else that at some point solid axle and Jeep's going away. Then what are we all going to bitch about, right?
Yeah.
But you know, that's a tough one. I mean, the price point on everything on Wrangler's gone up. Bronco's gone up a little bit, but not quite as much as Wrangler. Tacoma now, I think, is through the stratosphere.
Yeah.
But do you guys do much Tacoma?
We
Right?
do. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the cool thing about the Tacoma is basically '05 and up, 4Runner and Tacoma is the same exact axle.
Yep.
So
Is that a good global market for you guys? Are you responsible for outside U.S. sales on that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Platform.
A little bit. We have some Hilux stuff that goes to Australia. That we don't necessarily sell here locally. We do some private label Toyota market.
Gotcha.
But yeah, there's a bunch of Toyota stuff. But the '05 and up 4Runner and Tacoma is really popular in like the long travel applications. So Marlin Crawler has I think it's the RCLT, the Rock Crawler Long Travel. And that's been huge for us because that's the guy that wants to go four wheel and he wants to put 40s on it. He wants to wheel it hard, and it's a perfect match for us. So yeah, we pretty busy in the Toyota IFS there. That's one of our. I'd want to say it's a top 15, top 10 product for us.
Nice. Number one would be the Jeep market.
Number one's Jeep. Yeah, hands down Jeep. And then UTV would fall in there, but UTV is not one. The Jeep is pretty much like 5-6 SKUs.
And you guys don't get into any American muscle, so you're not doing like IRS Mustang or Charger or any of that type of stuff.
No, but it is something that is that we've looked at for sure. We do some stuff like that. We have some knowledge on that segment, so I mean, there's really not much reason not to, other than just focus and time and that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's not crazy to think that we get into that world. We have done some stuff for the car world, granted off-road, more in the rally and custom world. We've done some, like we're in the Unicorn, for example.
Nice.
Like some interesting specialty road/rally builds. So.
And why the orange boot?
I wish I had a good story about it, but early on, the customer that wanted it, he wanted orange, and it was like a reddish orange at that time, but it just kind of stuck. We made it one time for the one customer that requested it early on, and here it is. And now it's our thing. And like I said, our logo was red when we started. And that was like one of my first orders of business was like, hey guys, we got an orange product. We're known for orange. We should maybe have an orange logo. But yeah, so it's just I wish, like I said, there's no cool story, there's no deep, meaningful thing. It's just we made it one time and stuck with it.
And why you guys have stuck with the boot design? I personally, on a personal level, am not a massive fan of the boot design. Just because because I'm a clean freak and I don't
Yep.
like the slingy grease thing that comes
See,
out.
well, seeing that, so it's the greasing of an RCV is an art, not a science.
Yeah, and maybe
you
I
know,
don't explain the art of keeping an RCV up to par, right? I mean, I've never had a single issue with any of the side by side axles. I mean, I think 10 years in on running side by side axles, 8 years in with you guys now, and they've always been flawless. Never had any. But the boots, yeah, the sling and grease thing. Like, how do you solve that? Like, how do we get back into just having a clean
yeah.
underside?
So first things first, the bellowed boot, like the standard CV boot you see on everything. The downside to that is it's going to tear. It's the Achilles heel of a CV. It is gonna tear. You're gonna get a debris. You're gonna oversteer it. It's gonna crack. It's just a challenge. Now, the spherical sealing boot is allowed to be a larger CV in a smaller spot. You don't need as much room for the boot, so you can do a lot more, meat there.
It is tight tolerances. It is tight tolerances, I noticed, just on a Jeep end of things.
So from the functional standpoint, that's that. Now, from keeping the grease in there, it's just when it comes out, like we'll send it greased, right? So all axle kits are pre-greased, ready to go. And then we send a tube of grease for maintenance. Well, you wouldn't believe the amount of people that take that maintenance tube of grease and pump it in there the first time. Now they've got, because you don't pump CVs to where they come out. And I think that's probably something that we should work on for education purposes is, if it's coming out, you got too much grease because the grease is centrifugal force in the boot. You want it to stay in the CV. It's not going to really centrifugal force out of that CV too bad. So it'll stop throwing grease out of the boot. And from that point is when you maintenance it. And it's only 5 or 10 pumps of grease every other oil change or every few weeks or months, depending on how much you drive it, right? So that's where the art comes in.
When you ship the axle, it's dry, right?
No, it's ready to go. It's greased.
But you ship it with packs of grease.
Yeah, we'll ship it with a tube of grease. And the intent is that's for your maintenance because it's a special grease. We have a synthetic moly blend grease that we require you to use.
Gotcha.
And but I think that it just gets bumped in there a lot. And, but over-greasing isn't a bad, it's not going to fail. From over-greasing, it's just going to make a mess. So, err on the side of caution, it's messy. But you don't have to be messy. You can run it, let it spin, wipe it up, let it spit, wipe it up, till it gets to a spot where you got this little bit of a black film over the edge of the boot. And then that's your maintenance point. You maintenance it from there. But like I said, it's a challenge. It's a fine line there. And, me as somebody that's over, super stimulated on it, right? Like it's easy, but the average person, I should probably work on a little bit of an educational campaign there of, don't make a mess. Here's not to make a mess with your RCVs.
I'd love it. I would watch it.
Yeah,
I would watch it. And it's not, I'm just a stickler for anything that comes out, right? You just look at it and go, better wipe that, Yeah. But as far as performance, like the Quiet, never had any issues,
Well, and what's crazy, you've got like the Gomez brothers, the UFO cars.
Yeah.
They're running the same spherical sealing boot on their 4400 race cars for King of the Hammers.
Yeah.
But they're absolutely massive, right? They're our big bell stuff. And, they've figured out a happy medium for grease there. And it's really not that big of a mess after a King of the Hammers, it's not covered in grease. So, there's just, like I said, it's an art, not a science, but I definitely could stand to do some education on that little front there. But
how many, you mentioned Ultra 4, how many guys you got in Ultra 4?
Man, we're pretty fortunate with Ultra 4. I'd say a majority of the 4400 class at this point. If it's IFS, it's us pretty much.
Nice.
We try to take care of everybody the best we can. UTV, maybe half the class. And then the numbers trickle a little bit for the EMC guys. A lot of that's just, crate axles or OEM or whatever. King of the Hammer, man, that's our Super Bowl. That's our biggest event of the year. We go We've been doing it since the beginning. I think the first time they had trade shows, I want to say the booths were down the track, like the starting line, maybe back then. It was before my time, but yeah, whatever year the first trade show year was, we've been there ever since.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. I mean, and you just won with JP Gomez this year too.
Yeah, we've been super fortunate with that. I mean, these UFO cars got everybody watching them right now. But yeah, this big bell program that we've come out with.
Larger bell on the end, or
Yeah, so it's considerably larger than a Dana 60 now. And we call them Big Bell. I don't really necessarily have a platform. I guess Rockwell, they're Rockwell size if you want to compare it to an OEM sized thing. And yeah, 40 spline, 47 spline, now 45 spline with the new Spider Tracks, ultimate unit bearing.
nice.
Trophy truck stuff. So it's a pretty cool product. And that thing came out of necessity from rock bouncing, believe it or not. Like the rock bouncing guys on the East Coast were like, hey man, this Dana 60 stuff. They got 800 horsepower and 43-inch stickies, and the Dana 60 stuff just wasn't cutting it anymore. So
the portal market, is it affecting you guys or not? I mean, it's not really, the stress then is at the outer end, more or less, not necessarily on the shaft. Are you guys feeling worried about that, or guys are still running them anyways?
yeah, I mean, the functional benefit of a CV provides smoothness. So if you have a solid axle and you're putting portals on it, you kind of, in my opinion, you would want a CV anyway. I mean, maybe I'm not wrapping my mind around it. I'm not an engineer. I just play one occasionally, but the U-joint will oscillate when steered. So if you turn your U-joint all the way, it changes the pivot point of the center line that steer, and now your power delivery is inconsistent. It's going to speed up and slow down that tire. You're going to get steering wheel shimmy, whatever. And I feel like a portal would only, exasperate that, right? Because now you're spinning, that tire is going faster for the same amount of oscillation. So,
Interesting.
So I would imagine a CV would be smoother performance, but that's just theoretical, right? But I'd be curious.
Interesting. And you not doing anything with the trophy trucks, any of the Mason stuff or any of that, or?
We were in, I want to say we worked with Menzies for a while.
Yep.
I'm not super high privy to all that stuff, but yeah, we've done some 4-wheel drive trophy trucks, or I guess all-wheel drive is what they're considered in that world, right?
Yeah.
But we've done some all-wheel drive trophy truck stuff, and we do a lot of obscure platforms that probably not a lot of people think, like Class 1 cars, Class 11 stuff. I mean, we do all the 930, 934, Series 30s for the 4400 cars, and sand cars. Like Blake Wilkie runs our stuff in the rear of his sand car bug.
Were you early on private labeling some stuff for like Pro-Am and that, or was it all you guys? Because I know like Roy early on he had his own line of 930s. So just wonder if you guys were making them, or?
No, not to my knowledge. No, we did our own. So we've always been doing our own thing, but we just don't push it too much, right? Like, given the opportunity, I probably should market that line of product a little bit more. But just like the sand car thing, man, I mean, I feel like those guys in Dubai or whatever, and maybe they're buying it, and I just, I'm just not marketing to them. But yeah, so it's a whole bunch of stuff in that racing world that we're involved in that probably not a lot of people even know that we're doing.
No, you're pretty. I mean, I see you in the Jeep world a lot, so that's where that's speaking of which, I just saw you at Easter Jeep. So yeah. How was Easter Jeep for you guys?
Dude, I love Moab. Maybe I'm a little partial to it, but I just love that place. And that, again, much like the Ultimate Adventure, that probably stems from my childhood. I was watching those. I don't know if you remember the Rick Russell VHS tapes, but
I remember him well, and sadly, I'm old enough to say I had a collection of them. So,
oh yeah, man.
I worked at Central 4-wheel drive behind the counter, and I can to this day I can remember cutting open the box and putting them on the shelf, and then having the guys come in and go, which one's good? Is this one good? And I'm like, that one's all right. I watched it.
Yeah. I still remember those Hummers crossing the Golden Crack in the rain, man. I don't know how many years ago that video was been, but so yeah, man. So going to Easter Jeep for us is obviously it's Jeep, so that's our big focus right now. and always has been a big focus, honestly.
Yeah, number one seller, you said. I mean,
Yeah. So going there and getting to hang out with everybody and all the like-minded individuals and get some trail time, not something I get to do. It seems like I only get to go four-wheeling now for work, which is not a complaint by any means, but it's super nice
and you
to
always
get out there.
you always have stories to tell when you're out there at Moab. I feel like one year I saw you putting in a transmission.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
This year you were overheating and the engine was done.
Yeah.
I think that you had a differential year. You had a gear year. Every year you seem to have something.
So I think it's the elevation. It must be
Blame it on the elevation. That works.
It's the elevation. Yeah, no. 2 years ago was my most stressful EJS. I got there. We went to Arches. I actually brought my wife there. She was gonna hang out with me and work the booth and all that stuff. So it was her first ever Moab trip. We go to Arches for the day, drive the Jeep down there, hike. We're there a day or two early. Great experience. Arches, highly recommend it.
Oh yeah,
Driving home,
awesome hike.
Driving back to the mini house that I rented, and transmission won't shift. Like, what's going on? So I do all sorts of troubleshooting and try to figure it out. Got these codes, and I'm very fortunate. One of my good friends, Ian Johnson, lives right down the road from me. And this dude is among all things,
solid guy. So he's got a little transmission in his background.
Yeah. So that's how he started. He was, a transmission guy. Like, that's what he decided to learn the most early on, and that was his strength. So I reach out to him. He's obviously at Easter Jeep Safari too, and he pulls out the HB Tuners computer, runs the codes. We figure out like a couple options that it might be, and I'm sitting here like it's inside the transmission. These options. It's not like a plug or this is a problem.
Yeah, it's not unscrew this sensor and screw it back in.
Right. And so I'm destroyed. This is day one of EJS. Jeep's done. Right. I can't go with one gear. I had forward and reverse. It just wouldn't shift. So anyway, he was like, no big problem. Just, go get the parts. We'll figure it out. No way. Okay. So whatever. He takes the Jeep, or I park the Jeep at his condo. And they start tearing it apart. Him, Matt Myrick, Rick, a couple other guys. They tear my transmission out of my Jeep while I go to, I think it was Colorado Springs or Grand Junction. I go to Grand Junction to get shift solenoid pack that's inside. I come back, my transmission's apart, in a driveway of his condo. And man, we rebuilt a transmission essentially in Moab and went four-wheeling the whole rest. I haven't touched that transmission since. That's been 2 years ago on a driveway rebuild. But just good people, man. I'm like Ian. I'll tell you that story. I got to tell you this story. So in the Crawl Magazine days, I was rounding up a whole bunch of people to do this thing called the Tennessee Media Run. At that time, I was tied in with all the rock bouncers and stuff. So it was Cole Works, it was Tim Cameron, it was a whole bunch of guys. And Ian was in Tennessee, and then I reached out to him through social media maybe and invited him to come along on this ride with one of his buggies and show out for Crawl Magazine. I think this was even before he had a vested interest in Crawl Magazine at that, because for a short time he was part owner, I believe.
Yep.
But anyway, so I met him, got to know him. He invited me on a TV shoot a couple years later, and we did this like whiskey and wheeling thing where I took my razor, legally tagged in Tennessee, took my razor and did this adventure thing with him. So we had gotten to be pretty good friends. And dude, this dude has helped me out more than I can even explain. So for him to rebuild my transmission, that's just like a drop in the bucket to him probably, but to me it's a huge deal. And
he's always, as long as I've known him, he's always been a good, he got the happy to help Canadian gene, right? He's always been happy, and I hope to help to have him on.
Man, he's great. Well, so this year at EJS, I've got this wild hair. I don't know why, but everybody does this ride. It's so and so ride. It's the blah 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 ride. It's this company. It's that company. It's the Hawaiian shirt ride. It's the whatever.
Every manufacturer puts in and has their specialty ride for content and to pat on the back to kind of constituents, right?
Yeah,
Guys
yeah,
running their brand and their product and that type of stuff. And
yeah. Like
it is fun to network during those. That's some really great networking that I've been blessed to take part of over the years, for sure.
absolutely. Yeah, I was fortunate. There was a Nitto ride once that I was invited to. That was pretty cool. But anyway, and I also do one. RCV has a ride. We sponsor it with Red Rock, so it's like an entry level ride. And I love it. It's great. But we got this wild hair this year. We did the Big Tire Garage iPhone, Android, selfie stick, TV, influencer extravaganza ride. I don't remember if that's the exact name, but it's something I came up with. Just to
Nice.
make a joke. Let's just go riding for fun, whatever. And it actually turned into a great influencer TV extravaganza ride at EJS this year. So I think Lightbright just did a video on it on their YouTube.
That's the key, I think, to the next level of social media. Not to jump off on a tangent, but yeah, partnering with other social media, right? I mean, if you've got 250,000 and you got 250,000, how do we find some commonality to come together so we both are cross pollinating in and growing our reach together? Right. That I think is the next step. And who's done it, who's mastered it. Cletus, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, you look at the event they just had, and again, I'm sorry, I'm running off on a little tangent, but you look at the event that you just had 2 weekends ago, right? Last weekend.
Was that the Freedom 500, right?
Yes.
Yeah, a whole bunch of Crown Vics going racing.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny from an outside perspective. I look at it and I go, that looks like every other Saturday night in Monroe at the Speedway here, right? I mean, it looks like you're every local track in America, but the guy is able to fly in all the heavy hitters, right? I mean, and bring everybody in social media wise. Now it's just not a redneck track in the backwoods. I mean, it's a social media, again, extravaganza, right? I mean, everybody knows what's going on because he's brought them all in. It's genius, right? I mean, he's the ringleader,
yeah.
and that I think is a perhaps that next level of social media, right? The next thing is trying to partner and bring in more. And yet he maintains his value in a sense, right? I mean, he's the one that brought them all in and brought them together. He's matured and grown a lot, I think, in the videos as I've watched over the years.
Man, so speaking of that guy, so we did a deal with him. He was going to build a Can-Am and going to do this whole thing with a Can-Am. I don't even remember what all he had planned, but it was a great deal. And, and at that time he had huge reach. And so he reached out to us, needing axles. This was like to me at the time, a no-brainer. Yeah, let's work out a deal. Let's get a sponsorship going. Let's get this thing set up. So we sent him out axles, and either before he installed it or before he shot the content with him installed or whatever, he wrecked the Can-Am and wasn't able to do what he planned. And I mean, it was just like not gonna happen. So he calls us up, and I don't know that he even reached out to me. I think he just called us up and just paid for him, and like that character, that was just, that honest, hey, this didn't work out. What are we going to do here? None of that. Nope. He just paid for it. This is how it is. And I don't know, just ever since then, I thought, man, he's just seems like a real stand up, legit, straight like business guy. Like just as smart and care,
Yeah. I mean, I've yet to hear anything negative in the industry, right? I mean, through some of the other social media guys at that level, sometimes you hear grumblings or little stuff, undercurrents, right? But not much with him.
No, that was super cool. It always stands out to me. So,
and his call it genius luck, whatever, of not being all automotive. And by that, I would say, like for myself, I don't necessarily watch a lot of automotive YouTube content, but buy a Bell helicopter from Venezuela, I'm in. I mean, I don't know why, but it's almost back to that, a guy doing something that he's not familiar with or doesn't know. And I think that formula works really well for him. Of trying to get into something that, like, we know who he is, we know what he loves, we know, his kind of his background, like we've been there, done that, but now he's brought in some of this new elements. And I enjoy some of his helicopter stuff. I thought
Oh,
that
yeah.
was it was good because I'm not in that world. I don't play in the helicopter world, but I'm kind of curious about the guy that is learning about it, right? And because you're along for the ride with him. So
Yeah.
it does a really good job of that. I just identifying with the average guy, I think. A lot of fun. Yeah, a lot of fun he is.
Yeah. Even though helicopters, they shouldn't fly. That's just the whole thing. God, they stress me out.
They
I'm
keep
not.
saying, when the rotors to quit turning, you just land slowly and carefully. I watched Heavy D and his whole thing and all his theory on it. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know that I'm buying that. So
I don't, I mean, I travel a bunch, right? And I just really don't like flying in general. And I'm definitely not flying on a helicopter.
I will admit, I do have a fear of helicopters. It has dogged me for 30 years. I've had amazing opportunities to fly in multiple helicopters in Mexico, Southern California. Even with, my role now with NITO, I've had a lot of opportunities that I have passed up because I have this fear. Now, I did
So
try
you've never been in a helicopter?
No. I have been in a helicopter.
Uh-oh.
I have been in a helicopter. I put off a lot of it. Just don't want to. I'm okay. No, let somebody else ride. I made a lot of excuses. I never really told anybody this until I kept kind of quiet to myself until we went to Hawaii. It was right after COVID restrictions lifted. And I got served an ad for fly in a Bell helicopter, a 500, I think it is, the Magnum PI helicopter, right? And I'm a huge Magnum PI fan. So this trip to Hawaii, this was our second trip. Our first trip, I had to go swim in the lagoon, the ocean lagoon that is Robin's Nest. If again, I'm dating myself. Magnum PI was huge in the 80s. Ferrari, crazy helicopter with TC, private investigator.
Oh,
When
yeah.
you were in the 80s, every kid wanted to be a private investigator, drive a Ferrari, and have a friend with a helicopter. And
Yeah.
I'm in my 50s. I want every friend to have a Ferrari and a helicopter, right?
You're rolling up those sleeves too,
Yeah. No, I would even don the jorts, and I was a huge Magnum PI fan. My dad was too, and so we go to Hawaii, and I get served this ad. I'm like, fly in the Magnum PI TC helicopter, and I'm like, man, that would be the trip of a lifetime for me. But I kind of chickened out. Now I don't even do roller coasters. My wife and kid will do roller coasters. I'm like, I'm good. But as my kids gotten older, I got to put up to the challenge. If my kid can do it, I can do it. So I say to the fam, we're on this, I think it was at the same time Mel Wade was there 2 years ago. And I said, hey, what about taking a helicopter ride? And they of course are like, yeah, that sounds amazing. Okay, let me think about it. About a day go by, I said, you know what? I'm going to book this helicopter. I'm going to do it. And so one of the drop-down menu the buttons is with doors on or with doors off. And I was like, wow, now I got to think about this. Never really flown in a crazy helicopter. Flown in a helicopter once before. It was like a Robinson helicopter, 4-seater, scared the living daylights out of me. It's like, I swear as we're going sideways, I'm like, I swear we're going down. And again, just chose not to fly in them. But yeah, I take the box, doors off. Let's do it.
Yeah, go all in.
Scariest shit I've ever flown in. We literally, my kids sat in front. I didn't realize in the back of that little helicopter, it's a jump seat that pretty much you're half hanging out. Like, they kind of give you a crappy seatbelt that you buckle in, and you're literally like half hanging out on either side. And even my wife was like, she loves every crazy roller coaster you can go to and get on. And she was like, whew, you were right on the edge on this. And when that helicopter took off, and it's like, it's rough and tumble, it vibrates, it's like not refined. I mean, it just felt like a rough race car fired up, right? And he took off, and you hear him in the headset talking and he's like, are you ready? And I'm like, yeah, we're ready. And he took off, got us over the ocean, and he did this, one of these days I'll post it. It was like they recorded it. And of course I bought all the videos and all that stuff, but he takes off and he does this full straight up, like where you start to feel weightlessness as it kind of maybe runs out of power. And then he just inverts it to the side and he drops back down. And after we got the whole, it's 45-minute, hour-long ride, we get done and my wife is like, I was ready to pull the cord. She's like, I've never been so scared in my life. And I was like, now you were scared. Like, I couldn't even open my eyes. I looked down and I was looking straight down at water. Like I thought I was going to fall out of the helicopter. It was the craziest ride, but I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
It's like a Magnum Adventure helicopter out of Honolulu. It was $300 a person or $390 a person, worth every penny. And the guy, can't remember his name. He was a young pilot in the military. The guy was just super, like, the best at telling all the local stuff, the stories, like we saw where they filmed
like that.
Jurassic Park, the staircase that they're talking about tearing out in Honolulu there. Like he just, the pineapple fields, like he was so great, circling around, talking about Pearl Harbor. I mean, the best aerial tour you could possibly ask for, and yet you're just strapped into the side of a crazy
tense, holding your breath.
Yeah, sorry, I had a ton of fun. I'd forgotten about that. So
no, well, for me, so I've been in a helicopter maybe once, and the once is a very vivid memory. Super great opportunity. I was at King of the Hammers.
Yep.
And the guy's name was Thor. He piloted the helicopter that did all the coverage.
I know him. I've passed on my opportunity.
So yeah, well, I couldn't pass.
When I saw sideways at like 20 feet off the deck with the dust swirling, I was like, no.
Oh, he's good. He's good.
He's good.
So
he's good.
I got in there. I think I got in there with maybe Harry Wagner, working for Prime Media at the time, working for 4-wheeler, Peterson's 4-wheeler off-road.
Yep.
And took my camera and yes, let's do it. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Maybe let's go experience this. And it was pretty nerve wracking. But I would say there was a moment where we were climbing up the mountain full speed and then you peaked it and it just goes away, right? Just the land just disappears and you're way high over the lake bed. And that, I will never forget that feeling in my stomach because we didn't change directions. It was just my brain. My eye is telling my body that, whatever, my senses going haywire.
It throws them for a full loop.
I almost puked just from that experience. But it was fantastic. I mean, he did all the pans, like we were going sideways, up and over these crests, and it was great.
Yeah. Well, it is an amazing feeling. I remember as we came right up this ridge and he was talking about next we'll pop in, see where they filmed Jurassic Park, and there's still some of the set stuff down there, and you might recognize the valley. We come, and he comes just, I mean, again, it's probably 50, 100 feet, 200 feet, who knows, but right off the ridge, and as he pops over, he then just throttles out, and it just feels like you're dropping out of the sky, and your gut's like, oh, like, we're not going down, and that, there's nothing like a helicopter. I mean, it's just...
Yeah, like I said before, though, they shouldn't fly. That's just should be against the rules.
Yeah. I mean, that was part of there was nothing watching, we used to do, when I first started, we were really big on doing helicopter footage with Nitto. And it was something that my predecessor had set up. And so as part of our agreement with Dave, our agreement would say, hey, we get to do an annual video shoot with the helicopter. And that was even kind of pre-Shot Eye. I don't even know if Shot Eye, this goes back 10 years, 11 years. And so we would get some of that footage that we would be able to use in our marketing and our stuff. So, and those first couple of years, like, you want to ride? I'm like, no, I'm good. I'll stand down here with the fellas. Like, like too much for me. Like, there's nothing he's doing that seems FAA approved. So,
yeah, well, I've had bad luck flying in general. I don't like it. I didn't fly until I was, like 17, 18, 19 years old. My first flight ever was to West Monroe, Louisiana from Birmingham, Alabama.
Puddle jumper.
I flew there for a photo shoot. One of the guys built some buggies down there. Like, this is all also during all the Duck Dynasty, like the height of Duck Dynasty. So I'm really excited to go to West Monroe, Louisiana, and go do this photo shoot. Maybe go see the Duck Dynasty guys. Long story short, I'm first flight ever. Walk out of the airport, going down the whatever the tube thing that goes to the airplane. Right, get down the tube where you go into the airplane normally. No, it was stairs, and then go walk down, walk across the tarmac, and get into this plane, which is like the old Ron White joke.
Yeah.
The pilot told us to all the things, which was really dumb because he could have just been like, "Hey guys, So,
Yeah.
but so that was a super stressful experience, and since then I've flown commercial, a dozen times.
Commercial
And-
doesn't scare me a bit. Do you spend much time in any small planes like that?
No,
That's been
not-
an adjustment for me over the years, in that I've had not necessarily close friends, but a lot of people that I have known in my lifetime between, I mean, boy, BJ, not BJ Baldwin, the Baldwin kid, drawing a blank right now, but he went down off the coast of Costa Mesa there, coming back from a Baja 1000. And that one kind of hit me hard. When I fished in Alaska, I had a friend of a friend's plane go down, and we knew the couple that perished on that one. Boy, what was Rick Huseman was another one. Didn't know Rick really well, but I spent time with him. I was at Dirt Sports for a few years and spent time with him. We shot his Pro 4 at Fab Tech. We did a lot with Rick early on. He was our driver of the year one year. So Rick and the dialogue, like we had a lot of interaction dialogue in those early kind of monster Fab Tech, Dirt Sports magazine days. So when his plane went down, that was a real hard one for me because it just, like, I just can't wrap my head around a small plane falling out of the sky.
It's
and most
scary.
recently, still have a hard time with Creighton. I don't know if you spent time with Creighton, but he was a devout plane guy, right? He was just like, everybody should own a plane and fly. Everybody, and he'd had prior scares, right? He had the canopy thing come off, and he'd had some prior scares, but he was such a devout plane guy that when his plane went down and he passed, like, that was a hard one again for me. That just says, nobody likes to say, you see, but that's kind of how I felt. Like, you see, this is why I'm not a big, small plane fan. And yet one of my favorite YouTube channels that I enjoy, I can't think of his name, but he buys and sells like old plane. Like, he shows up on site to see if a plane's worth what it's worth, if you can get it refurbed.
I think I've seen that. Yeah.
He shows up in my YouTube feed, and I get caught up like, yeah, how do you know if like that jet's worth 50 grand or 200 grand? Like, I want to know, So I get caught with him following that stuff, and double-edged sword, right? I mean, it sounds great, sounds amazing, but if you've had people that you've lost, I had another friend lose his parents. We had another small plane went down here just on the other side of us from the island, and six people were perished coming back from San Juan Islands last year. So I'm going with the no small plane thing.
Yeah, well, I don't really even like commercial.
Nothing against all you that got planes. I love them, but
yeah, I don't even like commercial. You can
stick
put me
with
in
the
a big
commercial
plane.
and let the door come off. So
my wife convinced me to go to Punta Cana, or however you pronounce that, for our honeymoon.
Yeah,
and had to fly over the ocean for however many hours. No, it was so much stress and anxiety. By the time we went for a week on the honeymoon, and it took me the whole week to recover emotionally.
You don't do
that.
commercial then. You don't. You
hate
stress
it all.
on it.
Yeah,
Really?
Gravity, man. It's not just a good idea. It's a law, and I don't like it. I was on my bachelor flight from bachelor trip, and we hit turbulence so bad that people in the plane were screaming.
Oh, I've had that happen.
I don't know. Nope. If you're screaming on public transport or mass transport, no, that's not a good vibe.
Yeah, I've had that happen. I've had that happen from Arizona to LA, coming through some of those storms, and I swear the plane dropped 40 feet out of the sky, and just like a downward shear, and the plane lit up with like people kind of crying and screaming, because it wasn't just once. It did it once, it did it again, then it had violently went up, then it went violently. I mean, it was,
Yeah.
you know, you hear stories on the news, right, where people get hurt, and you're like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that if we weren't all buckled in and he didn't give us the warning and we hadn't just taken off, there would have been injuries on that flight.
Yeah.
And equally, I've been over, when I worked for Australian companies, I've been over the middle of the ocean.
No, sir.
You know, when you look at the screen and you like, it comes from LA, and then you get past Hawaii, and now you're like between Hawaii and there's all like those little not Virgin Islands, but Polynesian islands in there. And you're like over those crazy Polynesian islands, and we hit turbulence really bad. I was just like, oh geez, like we're going down. You know?
Yeah, no.
In a 7, I think one of those trips was like a 747, and it was turbulence. And I just think, I feel like, of course I was at the back of the bus, and I feel like, I swear I could see the plane flexing as I'm looking down the aisle.
Yeah. So now all my travel, I pretty much just drive. Yeah. Just me, the truck, because I'm the marketing guy. I'm the truck driver.
So you load up and put
guy.
in the time. That's why you don't fly out to any of these shows.
No,
you drive.
I'll bring. Yeah, you need me to haul something? Sure,
now
no problem.
We know. Now we know. Ricky and commercial, not happening.
I'll drive. That's fine. That's fine.
You won't even fly and take like a Xanax and just knock out or something.
Maybe, but it's nice. I like having control of my transport. I travel solo too, so like it's so easy. I've gotten. Leaving from Tennessee, everything I do is out west, it seems, these days. So,
there is a solitude to driving,
hours.
Being on the road, and being able to catch up on phone calls, being able to catch up on. I enjoy the travel and driving places sometimes more than flying, but yeah, I get it. Well, man, we're almost tipping in on 2 hours.
I don't know. It goes by so fast.
Yeah. Any other, what's coming up next? You're doing Jeep Beach. Talked about that. We got the Smoky Mountain Jeep show coming. You doing anything outside of those?
Man, we've got going this weekend, going to Ultra 4 Kentucky. I'm going to go support that.
I'll see you there. I'll be leaving Thursday. That's the newly formed Ultra 4 group. Whatever that is, we're still learning.
Yeah, but, so I'll be there. I'll be there Friday to shake babies and kiss hands and do whatever I can to support. I'm hoping
turnout's good there. I heard some concerns on the park being a little small. Those that live there, but it sounds like Goodby's got a plan that's punching that out, giving a little room to run.
I believe it's the same facility that does LS Fest and Mo Party and all that. So yeah, they pack in the people. So I mean, it's plenty of room for parking. Now the race course, I don't know, it might just be a whole bunch of laps, but either way,
they had a plan. It sounded like to bring in some rock and do some stuff. Holly was partnering in on that to potentially that the course would be around for off-road for an LS Fest, right? So it's kind of a win-win, it sounded like. But yeah, I feel like West Coast guys are kind of, some are going, some aren't going.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see, because short course on the East Coast is a little challenging for the East Coast local racers, because they're not really set up for short course. They're set up for woods and
and the weather's always a challenge there this time of year, right?
Oh, yeah.
April, May, June is always a roll of the dice. So
it'll be a muddy short course race will be an entertainment value, though.
Agreed.
I feel for the racers, but as a spectator, I whatever.
Yeah, agreed. And maybe better than just being in a woodsy style course, right?
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes I think that's a little harder on car and everything. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Excited about that. So after that,
turn around, head straight to Jeep Beach, and then after Jeep Beach, the summer's a little open. I've got some media stuff I'm doing. We're doing some rides and events and stuff. But as far as trade shows or whatnot, it's kind of a weird market world situation in that, I mean, attendance is going down a little bit.
Are you feeling the pinch, so to speak? Are sales feeling the pinch?
Not so much in that regard, just like the value for the travel, for us, we're such a small company that, you go to an EJS and you sell 30% less, and now you're, is it worth even going type situation. But
Do you value your attendance and sales in the same arena? Is that how you gauge it? Or do you track it
Yeah.
afterwards? Or is it a combination? People ask about Easter Jeep all the time for us. And I say it's a three-part mixer, so to speak. It's one, yes, it's a brand recognition thing. Again, all the tire companies are there. Two, it's a networking end of thing as far as all of our brand partners that we tend to help and support, and a lot of our influencers that we tend to help and support are there. And three, it's a content capture play
Yeah.
where we're there to content capture. You're at home, we're here. And so let's show you why we should go there. And not to jump off on a tangent, I don't know if we talked about this before, and I may have talked about this with others. I really wish that Easter Jeep would take note and maybe take some of those raffle winnings or whatever they are and hire an agency, hire Ricky B.
Yeah. So marketing.
Because Jeep obviously is not going to do it. I don't think maybe liability, maybe for a number of reasons. It's their event. They own it. It's Easter Jeep Safari, right? It's not Easter Bronco Safari. It's their event. But I feel like they don't do enough to help promote their own legacy and their own time at Easter Jeep, right? It'd be nice to see a TV commercial, in January, February, that for 45, 50 years, we've been attending Easter Jeep Safari.
Yeah.
Nice to see, come visit us in, April, right? They don't do that. So, but Easter Jeep needs to turn a page. They've got a social media page now, which is kind of a first for them, but they need to help promote it. Because there's 2 million Jeep owners, right? And
Right.
you and I know about Easter Jeep for those pillars, right? Brand awareness, content and networking with all the other companies and all the other manufacturers. But, my neighbor Bob down the street, he's like, where are you going? They're like, Easter Jeep. I mean, they got 2 Jeeps in their family. He's like, I think I heard of that. That Moab thing.
Right.
They don't know what it's about. Right.
Well, and I don't know if it was marketing or if it was just my passion at the industry or what. I mean, actually, I knew about it through probably the Rick Russell tapes, but, or being active, but learning about Easter Jeep, it was a big deal to me growing up. As an enthusiast, it was a goal. One day I would like to go to East. I'd like to go to Moab, and
for years it's been that, right? It's been a destination, and I think it still is for a lot of people. But it's
Agreed.
A destination point when you buy a Jeep. You're like, someday I'm getting to Moab, right? Someday I'm going to run the Rubicon. Someday I'm going to go to Fordyce. Someday I'm going to go. Those are destination points. I'm going to go run Black Bear Pass.
And I think as industry professionals, we need to support Moab so that it maintains, so that we keep it, right? Because, there's so much of that drama going on with the political stuff of, closing trails and land management and, closure isn't management and the town not supporting the off-road enthusiast. But I mean, I think that Moab and that experience of the new Jeeper, the new off-roader in general, it doesn't have to be Jeep. It can be UTV or Bronco or Toyota or whatever. It's such a
and all of those
legendary
segments have Moab events, right?
Yeah, and it's such a legendary spot that builds that enthusiast, right? You go there, you experience that, you're like, oh, I want more. I want to build my vehicle. I want to go do this more. I want to go more places or whatever. And it's such a feeder, a seed, if you will, to the whole industry that we need to support it and we need to, water the flowers.
I think companies
whatever
are
you want to
supporting
call
it. I just think that if again, you do the same thing forever and you're destined to fail. Right. If you wake up every day and you do the exact same thing, there's very few things you can do in life and very few events and where it needs to change or have a little change. Right. It needs to morph itself into, not morph itself, but change itself. Right.
Yeah.
And Easter Jeep Safari, the vendors have been doing the same thing it's been the same horse arena inside and out. They took over the parking lot. That was good. But we've been there, done that. And there's some for I don't know. I mean, I think Ray Curry and I have been talking for 8, 9 years now about why don't they put it downtown?
Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah.
you
Get
know,
see show off to the locals a little bit too. You know, right?
yeah.
Like
I mean, put it downtown on Main Street. You can't now. They were pouring some concrete sidewalks or some other stuff, but
yeah,
get it downtown, change it up a little bit, and I do think Moab and Easter Jeep has suffered post COVID from a little bit of just pricing. Man, you talk about the condos and
oh
hotel
yeah,
rooms, but I do think that'll morph itself out and change as there are just so many hotels now, right? I mean, there are all these new hotels, all these new condos, and hopefully the pricing will level itself out and come back down.
yeah.
But
I think the demand is you'll see that kind of trickle down a little bit too, because not like
it's
post COVID,
cyclical.
everybody wanted to travel too.
Yeah,
You know,
it's cyclical, and gas is $5 a gallon, right? I mean, where
right?
I'm at, it's $4.80 a gallon.
Yeah,
Gas is expensive, hotels expensive, food's expensive, everything's expensive. So you really have to want to go, which to some, that's our customer, right? The guys that are going, the guys that are there, that's our customer.
the
That's
true passionate enthusiast.
yes, that's
Yep.
who we want. So, but I do think it's in a little transition company wise, right? Used to be you had Warren there with their, they had their hotel in town that they took over. There's Warren trailers and Super Duties and Jeeps and everything in town. Same with FabTech, right? FabTech bring their semi and all their Jeeps and all their guys. Same with the Factor 55 guys, right? They're in town with all. Now you just have a semi and like 2 guys,
Yeah, all under
right?
one umbrella.
Now I walk in, I'm like, wait, Jeremy, what are you doing in Warren's spot? I mean, that change in is something I think the industry is really going to have to. It could be a short-term bump. I saw a lot of new companies fill in spaces, right? There are guys
Yeah,
there vending in a 10 by 10, 10 by 20. I'm like, who are you? So with consolidation comes opportunity. I think some will see opportunity, but yeah, we'll see where it goes, right? I think this year was good, but not as good as it could have been.
yeah,
So
agreed. And that's what we're seeing too, right? With like the rest of the shows. Hammers was a weird year. This year, EJS was a little weird. It wasn't bad. EJS wasn't, bad by any means. But so
my metric is what I don't want to see in marketing is I don't want to see the same people, right?
yeah,
I'm happy to see the same brand partners. I'm happy to see the guys that we work with, but I don't want to see the same consumers. I
mhm,
want to see different people, or I want to hear, hey, we were here like 4 or 5 years ago. I haven't seen you in a while, and hear the positive feedback from a customer. But I've in some of the companies I've been dealing with, there are shows and there are events that the frustration is we're seeing the same people.
yeah,
And that same argument's been going on for 30 years that I've been attending shows. You see the same people, and it's the same with our local car show,
right,
right? It's the same. Hey, I saw that Porsche last year, and he's here this year. you know,
yeah. Yeah,
but
yeah. So I don't know, man. We've got planning this year's event schedule. For me, I'm kind of a one-man marketing team, so guess I'll take it up with the team and see what we're gonna do this year for the rest of the year. But we've got planned, Smoky Mountain Jeep Invasions on the
yeah,
schedule. The Bronco Invasion thing, or Bronco Stampede, I think, at the same location, just because it makes sense for us. We can travel to one spot and do 2 shows basically. So we're going to do that and Pigeon Forge right before the Jeep Invasion.
yep.
We do PRI in Indianapolis. That's
How's your
always
feedback on PRI? Just out of curiosity.
for us. It's that we're looking for that. We're looking for that problem, right? Because I said some people come to us with a problem, we provide a solution. So we're there looking for problems, looking for opportunity. We're not necessarily selling our existing product. We're looking at growing or trying a different private label maybe, or whatever, make something, fix a, solve a problem. So PRI is pretty good for us. We've been doing it forever. It's fairly local to the company. We're in Rockford, Illinois, so
Yep.
going to Indianapolis isn't too bad. And it's like, it's kind of like a segment of SEMA, right? So it's very high end performance racing industry specific. So it's perfect for us.
Yeah. PRI, I've always enjoyed it. Just I love cool parts, right? There's just always, I always tell everybody, like, if you get the opportunity to go, because it's not all racing. Like there's tooling and welders and tools and coveralls and gloves and
Yeah.
but
No, I
then there's
mean,
cool steering wheels and seats and everything, right? You could be building a hot rod and you still will love it. You could be
yeah.
building a
Well,
Porsche and you'd love it,
it used to be very like engine centric, in my
yeah,
opinion. It was
very
very
roundy
like
round. I mean, that was the joke
exactly.
forever, very roundy round, right? It was
Yeah,
just
but it's growing. There's a lot of off road in there. There's a lot of trophy truck stuff. I mean, a couple of years ago, they always hang a vehicle at the front when you come in.
yeah.
It's IndyCar, it's NASCAR, it's whatever. It's been a trophy truck recently, a short course truck. So, it's expanding and growing. So PRI is always an interesting show. But
yeah
that's not till December.
the guy it's owned by SEMA, right? So the guy that puts a lot of that on, I mean, they're savvy to know that they got to change, right? They got to make sure they have off-road included. They got to make sure that these segments like Ultra 4 and Trophy Truck and rock bouncing is included in, PRI, because otherwise the show's going to die if it's just roundy round. The show's going to die if it's the NASCAR feeder series and that's all the show's all about, or your weekend racing. It's never going to grow. So yeah, they've done a good job at bringing some of that in, I think, for sure. And I mean, I can remember, man, when Healy won, I think one of the first years him and I walked around PRI, and it was like, Ultra what? King of what? Like, what you racing out there? Is that Desert Baja? No, King of the Hammers. Like, oh, not that. No, not Baja 1000. Like,
Yeah.
nobody really knew, but
you would be surprised still. I go to local off-roading events, and people don't know what King of the Hammers is, even still, even in the off-road segment, the Jeep world, the UTV world.
Yeah, there is a segment that doesn't know and is still learning. So, I mean, I run into that all the time up here in Washington, that maybe I'll wear a sweatshirt. And I was at a Mexican restaurant a couple weeks ago, and the server is like, King of the Hammers. He's like, where is that? And I'm like, it's down in Johnson Valley, California. And then looked at me, I'm like, north of Palm Springs. Oh yeah, okay, I know where Palm Springs is. It's like, I run into it, but I run into a lot of people that know about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I see the influence. I know I was struck last year. I was at, do you ever just get giddy when you see another King of the Hammer sweatshirt and you know the year, like, oh, that's a 2016 sweatshirt. Like you see something,
and then you qualify that person as like a real, that's an OG there. Yeah.
We're on the same page. Like I go out of my way. Sometimes my wife thinks I'm crazy, but I'll go out of my way. Like I gotta tap him on the shoulder. Like,
you think that's bad? So not to interrupt your story too much, but I host an event. I call it RBD. It's a birthday party that spiraled out of control, and now it's 2,500 of my closest friends.
I've seen you promoted on social. So it's an event that you put on. It's started around your birthday, as I understand it, because we talked about it before. You invited some friends. That kind of grew, kept growing, and now it's just blossomed into your own event.
Yeah, it's a thing. I have an LLC for my birthday party now.
Nice.
But it's just a recreational ride. I'm very fortunate to have made a bunch of friends, and we've built something here. And it's an annual thing that a lot of the people look forward to that are, in the Tennessee, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama area. But anyway, I make shirts every year, and I do a limited run.
Yeah.
Because I'm a single guy, a single operation, one person operation. So I do a small run of shirts, and they sell out every year. But I'll see an RBD shirt at, someplace. I've seen one at CMA Fest in Nashville. I've seen one at King of the Hammers. I've seen one all across the country.
It makes you giggle like a kid.
Oh my gosh. It's so cool.
I do the same thing. When I see a shirt that I recognize where it came from or know where it came from. I was doing a couple of years there, we were doing the giveaway shirts, like a Team Nitto giveaway, put everybody's brand. And I was at Monroe Speedway out here on a June or July. It was a July summer night. And I looked down and there's a gal in front of me. I'm like, that's my shirt.
Yeah.
like, what are you doing here? You know, and I tap like, hey, where'd you get the shirt? And like, oh, I was down at Hammers with my husband and they were giving them away. I was like, yeah, that's cool. You know, it makes you giggle a little bit.
You didn't
For
go tell her
sure.
like, hey, that was me, or
I
you just
didn't
like
say
smile.
I designed it. I pushed all the logos on it. I had to do all the paperwork to write it up, get it through my legal department. Yeah, I didn't. I spared her the details
Okay, got it.
just to get a shirt out the door. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I always
Yeah.
enjoy seeing that stuff in the field, and I hope more people take note of that. Right, when you see a shirt and it makes you smile, and you know where it came from, an event, tap that guy on the shoulder.
Well,
You know,
we
we're
are
a small community.
ultimately we're a small community for sure of like-minded individuals, and it's crazy the friendships that have evolved from this motorsports thing, the lifelong. You know, I ride with a guy one time, I make a bond with him. Now we're Facebook friends 15 years later, and you know, I tell him happy birthday or congratulations on the kid or whatever. Like, you know,
Yep.
this bond is so unique because we're all very similar people, I guess, in one way or another. We're all different, obviously, but something deep down, the passion is all the same. So
Yep.
it's
No, it crosses all walks, right? I mean, I've got Jeep friends, racing friends, C10 friends, Porsche friends. Like the automotive community as a whole is, you know, it's a learning environment, right? I mean, I don't know everything, and so you know, you get to you if you're lucky enough, you can chat with somebody that knows more than you, and they share a little wisdom and insight, and you know, you become more vested into that niche and that brand, and it's a fun community,
there
really
you
fun
go.
community,
Yeah,
right?
life's all about just trying to gain knowledge, right?
Knowledge and understanding, and you know, if you're lucky enough, you can pay the bills. So,
There you go.
well, Ricky, I've taken up too much of your time. Man, I know we're into dinner hours here. We're almost into bedtime hours. So, but
Man, no, I
I
appreciate it. I'm super happy to be on here. This has been super fun. I like what you're doing. I like all the stuff you got going on with the podcast and the people you've got going with
I
it. You've got
appreciate it.
some
That's
heavy
a work in
hitters coming.
progress. It's I'm learning as I go. I don't know anything about podcast. I know I like talking to people. I know I love figuring out what makes companies tick and what's going on. And so yeah, I mean, I figure why not? Let's chat with some people and put it on the record. So if there's ever any Ricky B Juniors running around, they can look back in 30 years and go, "Hey, my dad was all right," you
There
know.
you go. Yeah,
So
that's an awesome outlook right there.
that's the way I see it. That's the way I see it. You know, it's a legacy for the future. I mean, we're building stuff today, right? Today, you're doing stuff for kids tomorrow.
There you go.
And that is the one thing for me that I've been very humbled, I think, is that there are kids today that are building stuff and doing stuff that I've been able to reach and hopefully inspire, right? And I think I think anybody's been doing it long enough. You know, and I'm nobody. I mean, I'm literally like my kids' friends, right? And talking to some of they're 16, 17, 18, 19 now. Some of those guys, inspiration to get into the automotive space, right? And enjoy it. It can be a business, it can be a career. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's my take on it. We'll see where it goes.
awesome.
So,
Well, I'm along for the ride.
I appreciate it, my friend. I appreciate it. Once again, Ricky Berry, RCV Axle, and Ricky B Photography got his own event going, doing a little bit of everything. Thanks for coming on. And next week, we got another great guest. I won't spoil it, but in the Jeep space, been doing it a while. Who could it be? We'll see. All right, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.